Yeah, okay. Just let us know. We're getting a hum up here.
Okay, having finished the organizational part of our meeting, we're going to move on to what we had noticed as an emergency meeting to discuss in particular, the brown-tail moth problem, but also I think we wanted to have a discussion about ticks on town-owned properties. The reason this is on here is that we've gotten quite a number of complaints at the town office and to the department heads about the problem, especially in the ball fields. And it was raised at our meeting on Monday. We asked that the Conservation Committee take a look at it, and they met. Did they meet, Mark, this morning, or they did? It was an actual physical meeting this morning.
Correct.
And we wanted to discuss what they have recommended, and also we've done some research in the meantime and gotten the information from the state entomologist and so forth too. So, Mark, would you report on the Conservation Committee?
Actually, we have representatives from the Conservation
Oh,
Committee.
great. Okay, thanks. Would somebody want to come up from the Conservation Committee?
Hold on. You sat with this, Andrew? Drew?
It wasn't just me. Laura Laffin, okay. And I've got the full recommendation, Mark, and I'm happy to go through that. I think we forwarded it, but we
Would
can
you
go
introduce
through.
yourself again?
Sure. So we met this morning, and we had a long conversation, some anecdotal, as well as some of the research that we have done ourselves as a commission, and had sort of made a recommendation, but really wanted to reach out to Karen Caluzzi, who we've been working with from the state. And Karen sent us a very wonderful, detailed email this afternoon. She was going to be here tonight, but she was not able to.
And that's the state entomologist, is that
Correct.
correct?
And I believe
Yes.
I forwarded that to the board.
Yes.
So you all have all of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but would you
But you want me to
read
go-
it or summarize it?
Sure. So
for
let's go
everyone?
through the highlights that I took away, and feel free to add if you've gone through it, is the recommendation currently for this time frame. What we were asked to talk about was really about the fields, so the ball fields. And that's different from what someone may do, as we were just discussing, to a 200-year-old, very important tree in your yard as a person. But for this time frame, the recommendation is not to treat chemically. It would be, she actually says, it would be considered ineffective and a waste of money. It is too late in this cycle. They're moving, and broadcast spraying pesticides would be detrimental to the environment and beneficial insects. Most of the toxic hairs have already shed from the caterpillars and are in our environment, so pesticides will have no impact on the hairs already shed. They may persist up to 3 years in the environment. What she does recommend doing is you can do like a wet vacuuming of caterpillars, spraying the field and dirt with water to keep the hairs from floating into the environment. And this was welcomed here because this was something we had discussed this morning as well, was could we soak the fields in essence to keep it out of the air. Spraying, and basically using the same type of precautions we would for ticks. Long sleeves, long pants, being cautious, wear any protection you can, keeping your skin covered. The greatest risk is right now from April until July. So we're almost at the end of it as well. Talks about the toxins. The toxin can be in the environment for 1 to 3 years. The hairs are airborne. Wearing hats, again, she talks about wearing long sleeves, long pants, dust mask if you're doing work. Don't use leaf blowers, lawnmowers on dry days, again, keeping the moisture, trying to not have everything into the air. doing your yard work on wet days, do not dry laundry outside. And something else that we had discussed this morning too, also right afterwards, and this would be good, we think, to educate the parents that are concerned about the ball fields, is doing all of these things, and because you probably have been exposed at some point, as soon as you get home, cool showers, taking everything off, and avoiding. So a lot of the same measures that we use kind of for some of the tick exposure.
So one of the things that I understand is that the bleachers are underneath some oak trees. Mike Young, would you come up? Are underneath the bleachers and maybe the dugout, and that their caterpillars are dropping like flies?
We had somebody go out there today too, just to kind of
Yeah.
walk where that was.
Yeah. Okay, Mike?
You go ahead.
Marcy called me and said it wasn't too bad, and then,
She couldn't find any.
yeah, they're covered. They're there. I went over with the gentleman that helps us with
Can
the
you
school.
speak into the mic? There you go, Mike.
That helps us from the school, and they're certainly there, and he had the same report that it's unclear what goes on with the hares when you kill them, so they are floating around. Disease control, Diane talked to him today, they gave us the same basic answer, that there is a learning curve here of this time frame of what to do with them. One of the things that I've been told by a number of different people is manage these trees, and when I say manage these trees is make them go away. They're over the dugout, they're over the bleachers. For this weekend's game, I'm gonna move the bleachers and get them so they're not dropping right on the bleachers.
You are going
'Cause-
to move
yeah.
the bleachers?
Yep,
Okay.
I'll get that done. I guess what I would recommend at this point, we're gonna get some signs warning people that they're there. If I could get permission, I don't know when I can get them down, but the ones near the dugout, at least get them limbed up. And when the caterpillars come down, it's what we call it, Public Works, a propane turkey baster. When those limbs come down, we'll cook them, and that will be the end of the hares, the caterpillars, and try to create so the hares aren't floating around. That if
Because
we-
I think because the experts seem to all agree that you have to put them in soapy water for several days, or you have to burn them or whatever in order to
Right,
truly get rid of them.
Right. One of the things that I've been hearing and talking to people, the best way to get rid of them at this point without the hares floating around is to burn them, incinerate them. So I guess my recommendation at this point was maybe we look at these 3 trees, not that I can get them down before the game, but trim them up, maybe even right at the base. Burn the caterpillars while they're on the leaves as the trees come down, and then get everything out of there and cleaned up the best we can, because they are right over the dugout. And like I say, Marcy had looked at the dugout, it wasn't that bad, but then we went over again, and they're just all through the oak trees, and it's oaks that are leaning over.
If I might, one of the people that was invited to the meeting was Steve Beveridge, whom most of you are familiar with. Steve is a licensed person to be able to handle those types of things to a degree. And he said that basically the same thing. I think your treatment at this time is futile. The best time to do it is early spring, say March, by injecting the tree with some,
There's a fall, I think, end of spring.
yeah, late November-ish and March-ish.
And there's also, with injecting, that's not going to cure them. It's got to go through one cycle
Right.
before it really starts to take hold. So if we injected them this fall or this spring, we'll still have a problem
And he's-
next spring. And
and
then
as he's-
after that, it would really start to take
And
hold.
as he said, they go through cycles and they will eat themselves out of here.
Right,
And
right.
go on to somewhere else.
So,
But becoming a little more proactive rather than reactive is probably in our best interest, whether it's the brown-tail moth or the tick, that are on public properties that we can help
So-
prevent from being there.
So, like I said, I've got signs coming for Walker Park as well to warn people that they're there. For the ball field, we can either just move the bleachers. I would like to, do some work on these trees and try to take care of the ones that are right over the bleachers and dugout. And also recommend to the ball team, if they get a foul ball in the woods right there on that foul line, just don't chase them, just
Let it go.
get some more balls, and so they don't have to get in the woods chasing the balls.
I called up the Department of Forestry today, talked to them, and it's pretty much the same information. So, basically, from what we're hearing tonight, I guess the select board should make the decision to support Mike in moving the bleachers for this week's game, to start taking care of the trees that are overhanging the property. And I think that's probably what
And
the approach is
the
going to be.
signage,
And the
yeah.
signage, yeah.
Right. And I went to our local sign shop here that's going to try to get them made for this weekend so I can get them up, because I think the tournaments start at the game at the field this weekend.
The thing is, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
And John Novak's a gentleman for the school that does the same thing on their property. And between us, I think we can come up with the stuff and tools and make this happen fairly quick.
I don't want to beat this to death, but again, the gal at the forestry department said that, there's a whole gamut of ways to approach this. None are going to be perfect. She said that her town, and she didn't tell me which town it was, up near Augusta, they just weren't going to do anything. And then I saw in the paper that Cumberland is going to actually do an aerial spraying this fall sometime. But again, for I think our situation here in Rockport, I think this sounds like a reasonable approach to it.
And least I forget, our new manager coming in from Bowdenham.
Yeah.
They have tackled that quite fiercely, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years, so he'll have
Yeah,
a
it's-
bit of knowledge about
Yeah,
how.
that's good, and that's not surprising, because when you look on the map that the Forestry Service has, it shows Bowdenham as being really infested and things getting closer and closer into us in the severe red infestation area too.
Yeah, I was just going to that point, that where it started down there, one of the other things she shared, so 2 things. I think this immediate, because we've taken care of the immediate need to make parents and the kids feel comfortable, but then we did talk about also, we need a longer-term strategy to deal with this next time. But one of the other things that was shared with me just later this afternoon was possibly good news. The arborist that works down in Bath and Topsom says they are noticing now a lot of diseased caterpillars, which we've been told previously there are no natural predators, so that's kind of part of the issue. But what they're finding is all this cold, wet weather we've had, there's a fungus, and it's taking them out. So they think that this is going to be good news, and it's going to start naturally decreasing the population.
That's
So-
interesting, because I
Yeah.
read that in the 1920s or something, the same thing happened. I mean, apparently, these things have come here like in the late 1800s, and they came to New England.
It's like a
Sorry, you
locust
guys, but
cycle.
anyway, yeah, it came to New England, and then right now, and now it's along the coast of Maine and Cape
Yep.
Cod are the only places that you find them. But that they took, some places took a pretty aggressive stance going back to, I think, the 1920s, and then there was a fungus that wiped out a bunch of them.
So maybe nature will help us a little.
Yeah.
So we've asked
Yeah.
there, like, we would love to keep track of that, to be watching, and that would be good as
Yeah.
you're out to know. So I've asked, can we see what the diseased caterpillar looks like? So hopefully we'll get some pictures and we'll share those.
So I would think, so that sounds like a good approach. I think that there's a consensus on taking that approach that Mike suggested. Everybody's nodding. I don't think we need a motion on that, do we? And then I think at some point in the next couple of months, we need to look at this in a more comprehensive way, what, if anything, we need to do in the fall. And maybe take a look at, I'd like to propose that we take a look at our pesticide policy generally in the town, just review it. It's been 11 years.
Yeah.
Things have changed since they
Yep.
implemented it.
Yeah,
You happy with that, Mike? Yes. Okay.
okay, well, thanks, everybody. We just wanted to address this, given all the concerns that have been expressed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only thing left is a brief executive session. So if somebody wants to make the appropriate motion.
I move we, Select Board, enter executive session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 4056A.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Okay.
introduce Denise to the dreaded green
green room.
Oh, yes. Can I
Get
have the
down there
rocker,
quick
by
and
the
get a
way?
comfy chair.
I get the